It's a bird. It's a plane. It's two dudes in wingsuits doing something their mamas probably lost sleep over. The World Trade Center in the Middle Eastern nation of Bahrain has a distinctive two-tower design. It's one of the tallest complexes in the country and further distinguished by the wind turbines placed between the buildings. So what two athletes recently attempted was a simultaneous crossing in between the towers from opposite sides above the wind turbines that would have otherwise, well, it would have been bad. Anyway, after dropping out of a helicopter, they met up in side-by-side flight, split apart after a cue was given, and began the process and countdown of getting into position for the crossing. Then they took careful aim at their target and managed to pass each other in between the towers. One of the pilots said the timing was the hardest part. The stunt, a success punctuated by the fact that both somehow survived, marked a first for the extreme and extremely dangerous sport. The planning, permits, mapping, simulation, and flight training for the quick, death-defying crossing reportedly took 2 years. Hi everyone, I'm Carl Azuz. Next today on The World from A to Z, an escalation in the standoff between the United States and Venezuela. Yesterday, President Donald Trump announced that U.S. forces had seized an oil tanker off the coast of the South American nation. The U.S. government says the ship was taken over safely and securely, and that it was part of an international network that illegally sells and transfers oil. According to the U.S. Congress, America has had sanctions or penalties on Venezuela since 2005. The aim is to punish Venezuelan officials and businesses accused of crimes and corruption. The U.S. says Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has trafficked illegal drugs, smuggled oil, and undermined democracy. And though he denies all of that and says America is trying to force a change in his government, American leaders have tried to pressure Maduro by preventing the Venezuelan oil sales that could benefit the nation's economy. The Trump administration does not see Maduro as the legitimate leader of Venezuela. He claimed victory in a presidential election last year, though U.S. officials say he actually lost the vote, and major candidates who opposed him have either gone into hiding or left Venezuela. In recent months, the U.S. has attacked numerous boats suspected of carrying drugs from Venezuela, and America has moved warships into the Caribbean. President Maduro has said America is trying to create a new war in the region and that Venezuela wants peace. But with tensions boiling between that country and the U.S., what happens next is anyone's guess. We'll keep you posted.
As an atmospheric river slams the Pacific Northwest, at least 18 locations in western Washington are predicted to hit major flood stage by Thursday. But a few of those could see their highest levels on record, especially along the Skagit and Snohomish rivers. Rising water from the Snohomish River forced rescues and evacuations, with some people leaving with their livestock and sheltering at Evergreen State Fairgrounds.
Just a lot of scrambling, trying to figure out the plans, what's up, who's doing what, the whole barn, what do we want to do.
The Red Cross was also ready to shelter people going through one of the most difficult moments in their lives.
I just want to be able to support them and help them get through that.
In Western Oregon, drone footage captured a flooded street in the downtown area of Tillamook. The city has seen over 6 inches of rain over the past 3 days. Rain will continue through Thursday as a second wave of the atmospheric river hovers over the state. Tillamook's fire district chief is asking people to not go through any standing water on roadways.
You don't know how deep the water is, if there's a lot of current.
It also poses a risk for first responders when it comes to rescue operations.
They're stuck, and then it puts us in danger, us being the first responders. So from law enforcement to fire, it's a scary thing.
I'm Ivan Rodriguez reporting.
On this date in world history.
December 11th, 1936, Britain's King Edward VIII took to the radio to announce that he'd abdicated or given up the throne the day before. This was the first time a British ruler had ever voluntarily done that. The reason was because he wanted to marry an American woman who'd been married twice before, and the circumstances surrounding their relationship were considered socially and politically unacceptable at that time. Edward's brother George VI became the next British king. This was the date in 1997 when an international treaty known as the Kyoto Protocol was signed by 84 members of the United Nations. It was named for the city in Japan where the agreement was made, and its goal was to reduce the worldwide emissions of greenhouse gases. Supporters have called it one of the most important environmental treaties ever, but critics were concerned it would increase energy prices, and the treaty did not achieve its goal, with greenhouse gas emissions increasing after it was implemented. And on December 11, 2008, an American financier named Bernie Madoff was arrested and charged with cheating investors out of tens of billions of dollars. It was history's biggest known Ponzi scheme, when money from new investments is used to pay off older ones, but without legal profits actually being made. Madoff pleaded guilty and spent the rest of his life in prison.
Ever heard don't go out in the cold with wet hair? Or grab a coat, it's chilly outside? But does cold weather actually make us sick? Short answer, no. Cold does not cause illness directly, but the warnings are good sense. In a recent interview, a Purdue professor explains how cold plays a role in making us more vulnerable to getting sick.
Viruses that cause the flu, COVID-19, the common cold, and RSV can live longer in colder temperatures and replicate faster.
Meaning they cause infection easier. Cold weather also takes humidity out of the air, and this can dry out and impair our eyes, nose, and throat, making us more susceptible to airborne and inhaled respiratory viruses. We also see less of the sun in winter, as daylight hours are shorter and cold temps keep people inside.
Being exposed to the sun is an important source of vitamin D, and vitamin D plays an important role in our immune system health.
Another factor? Most of us tend to stay inside and are in closer contact with one another.
Which means easier for viruses to spread person to person.
I don't know about you, but I'm a little less active during cold months, and activity is important to a healthy immune system. Certain populations are more at risk than others due to age or health concerns, but the best way to stay healthy for anyone is to do all the things you already know to do to not get sick. Wash your hands and maintain good hygiene. Stay hydrated and eat a balanced diet. And get plenty of rest.
Today's destinations are the Silver State, the Bay State, and the Last Frontier. In Nevada, we're running with the Mustangs of Shadow Ridge High School. Mrs. Speciale's class, we see you in Las Vegas. We've got some Wolverines with us from the East Coast at Lester Middle School in Lester, Massachusetts. We're thankful to Mr. Everett for using our show. And they ain't the only Wolverines. South Anchorage High School is here from Anchorage, Alaska, where Mr. Isert's class is watching.
World of knowledge. What was painted on the Sistine Chapel ceiling before Michelangelo created a masterpiece there? Treetops with birds? A sky with stars? Ropes and knots? Nothing. Before Michelangelo's work began in 1508, the ceiling of the chapel was covered by a painting of a sky with stars.
This rough sketch of a foot may soon nab millions of dollars at auction because experts believe it may have been a precursor for what would become one of the world's most famous works of art. Christie's auction house says the sketch, called the Sibyl's Foot, is one of the few remaining privately owned works by Michelangelo. Yes, the Michelangelo. They believe the sketch was a study leading up to the artist's masterwork painted on the ceiling of Rome's Sistine Chapel. The sketch is believed to have eventually become part of the Libyan Sibyl, a barefooted figure featured on the famous ceiling fresco. Another similar study of the figure is housed at the Met in New York City and also features similar sketches of a foot. But Christie's says this simple sketch is the only one connected to the chapel ceiling to ever come to auction, and as such, they are estimating it will fetch at least $1.5 to $2 million when it hits the auction block in February.
Last story today, a case cracked of a corrupt cop caught on camera causing catastrophe. The law enforcement member you see here is Chase. He's a K-9 officer with Pleasant Prairie Police in Wisconsin. And in what the department called graphic video, at least for snowmen, the dog was recorded vandalizing and literally disarming an innocent snowman before fleeing the scene. They apologized to the owner and said Chase has been put on leave for, quote, armed robbery. I mean, it was an effective disarmament technique, and it rendered the dog extra armed and dangerous. The case against Chase includes charges of armed obstruction of justice, burglary, aggravated assault, prancing with evidence, cruel and unusual punishment, dog's-orderly conduct, snow vandalism, and snow manslaughter. And it's unclear whether he'll return to Paw Patrol. I'm Carl Azuz for The World from A to Z. Thank you for watching. You mean the world to me.